What if destiny put the right person in your path at the wrong time? Lorenzo was a powerful billionaire, surrounded by luxury, but condemned to a void that not all the money in the world could fill. No heirs, no family, no real purpose. Until, in an impulsive act, he gets on a train, and a simple stumble puts him face to face with Amelia, a woman who has nothing in common with him, except for the fact that, in some inexplicable way, her ways appear intertwined. But love between two opposing worlds is never simple. Intrigue, betrayal, and a mistake that could cost everything. What Lorenzo didn't know was that losing Amelia could be his greatest ruin. And now, will fate give him a second chance, or will it be too late? Money buys everything, but never enough. Lorenzo held tight to the steering wheel of his sports car, gliding smoothly through the streets of Barcelona. The city lights flickered in his reflection in the windshield, but he didn't see them. His mind was trapped in a deep void, a black hole that all the money in the world could not fill. His cell phone vibrated on the dashboard. A message. "Big event tonight at Marco's house. Champagne and good music. Are you coming?" He sighed, deleting the notification. The same itinerary, the same parties, the same people. Nothing new, nothing real. His gaze strayed to the car window, catching his own reflection for a brief second. There he was, successful, powerful, desired, but also alone. The kind of loneliness that not even the echo of a crowd could fill. The thought came like poison whispering through his mind. I will never be able to have children. The traffic light turned red. Lorenzo tightened his fingers on the steering wheel. His doctors confirmed it years ago. He was sterile. The lineage he inherited and built would end with him. A financial empire without an heir. A name without a future. The lighthouse opened, but Lorenzo did not advance. Something inside him snapped. On impulse, he turned the car sharply, deviating from the usual path. He sped through the streets, leaving civilization behind, until he stopped in front of the train station. A security guard approached. "Mr. Lorenzo, all good?" He got out of the car without responding. "Are you going to leave your car here?" the man asked, confused. Lorenzo just smiled. "Today I want to do something different." He walked into the station without looking back. The metallic smell of the tracks mixed with the hot steam of the train filled his senses. He bought a ticket without even seeing the destination. The machine spat out the paper, and he headed for the platform. The train arrived. He entered. The carriage was packed, the air thick with voices, laughter, and the faint smell of cheap perfume mixed with coffee. He stopped near the door, holding onto one of the top bars. That's when he felt a foot under his. "Careful!" exclaimed a female voice. He looked down and found a pair of bright brown eyes staring up at him. "You could have moved your foot out of the way," he replied automatically. The woman arched her eyebrow, crossing her arms. "Or you could, for the first time in your life, apologize." Lorenzo frowned. Who was that woman to talk to him like that? But before he could respond, a hoarse voice spoke from a nearby bench. "Unexpected paths lead to the best discoveries." Lorenzo looked at the old man sitting there. Wrinkled face, long beard, eyes full of secrets. "And even?" he murmured, uninterested. The train shook. The woman adjusted her bag on her shoulder and let out a light, almost challenging laugh. "I bet you're not used to the unexpected." Lorenzo didn't respond, but her words stuck with him like invisible barbs embedded in his mind. "You again?" Lorenzo stopped at the mansion's entrance, frowning as he recognized the woman holding a battered bag next to the housekeeper. Amelia lifted her chin, surprised to see him there. "Sir," he began, but stopped when he noticed the cold look he was giving him. "What are you doing in my house?" The housekeeper intervened with a professional smile. "Mr. Lorenzo, this is the new employee we hired for domestic service." Lorenzo looked her up and down, as if he were looking at a misplaced piece. "Good," he murmured, turning away without saying anything else. Amelia narrowed her eyes but remained silent. That night, as he finished his first round of chores, the housekeeper handed him a silver tray. "You will take Mr. Lorenzo's meal to his room." "I—" Amelia arched her eyebrow. "Yes, just leave the tray and leave without making a sound. He hates being disturbed." Amelia sighed, picking up the tray. As he walked up the stairs, he hesitated for a moment before lightly knocking on the door. No response. He pushed the door slowly. Lorenzo came out of the bathroom, wearing only a towel. His gaze met hers instantly. For a moment, the silence between the two was absolute. "You again?" he repeated, his tone full of irony. "Believe me, it wasn't my choice," she replied, placing the tray on a table. "Are you following me?" "Don't worry, millionaire. You're not that special." A sarcastic smile played on Lorenzo's lips. Interesting. A maid with attitude. And a boss who doesn't know how to say thank you. Before he could respond, Lorenzo faltered, chest tight, breathing irregular. He reached for the bedside table, feeling for something. "Are you well?" He couldn't respond. The world seemed to spin. Amelia ran to him, holding his arm. "Your inhaler! Where is it?" He pointed to the drawer. She quickly opened it and took the small device, pressing it against her lips. "Breathe," he whispered. 1, 2, 3. That's it. Lorenzo inhaled the medicine, feeling relief course through his lungs. His eyes met hers, for once, without arrogance. "Thanks." Amelia just nodded. "Do you really think he's going to look at you?" Amelia turned around and found Beatrice, the housekeeper, leaning against the kitchen counter with a venomous smile. "That's not why I'm here." Beatrice took a step forward, pretending to adjust the sleeve of her uniform. "Of course, but you know Lorenzo doesn't like people who cross limits. He values discretion." Amelia pursed her lips, but didn't respond. "Do you know what he loves?" continued Beatrice, lowering her voice. "Family. Children." Amelia frowned. "Like this? He's going to be a father. His future wife is pregnant with twins. He wants to prepare his room for this special moment." Amelia blinked, surprised. "Is he going to have children?" "Yes, but for now it's a secret." Beatrice smiled. "And since he trusts you, I think it would be beautiful if you decorated the room yourself. A surprise." Amelia hesitated, but then smiled. "If he likes children, this will move him." Beatrice tilted her head, satisfied. Hours later, Amelia finished the last adjustments. Lorenzo's room now exuded softness, pastel cushions, a painting of a father holding a baby, a faint scent of talcum powder in the air. She stood back, admiring the result. When Lorenzo entered the room that night, he smelled it before he even turned on the light. He stopped. The air felt thick, suffocating. His eyes took in every detail, the soft tones, the toys delicately arranged on the dresser, the painting next to the bed. His body stiffened. "Who did this?" The voice echoed through the room, filled with something that wasn't just anger, but pain. Amelia, who was at the door, smiled. "It was me." Lorenzo turned slowly, his dark eyes burning. I wanted to do something special, something to humiliate me." Amelia's smile disappeared. "What?" Lorenzo took a step forward. "How dare you joke about that?" She frowned. "I'm not kidding. You knew." His voice shook. "You knew I was sterile." The sentence hung in the air like an invisible blow. Amelia stepped back, perplexed. I didn't know." Lorenzo clenched his fists. "Get out of my house. Now." Amelia packed her suitcase with shaking hands. The simple room where he had slept for the last few days now seemed cold and empty. The weight of injustice tightened her chest, but she refused to cry. It wasn't worth it. Beatrice appeared at the door, leaning against the doorframe, a satisfied smile on her lips. "What a shame. I really thought you would last longer." Amelia ignored it. She picked up her bag and walked past the housekeeper without looking back. When she reached the entrance of the mansion, Lorenzo was there, watching her with his arms crossed. His face was closed, but his eyes betrayed something other than anger. She stopped, hesitated for a moment, but lifted her chin. "Those who accuse are not always right," said Amelia, looking at him fixedly. He kept his gaze hard, but something faltered in his expression. She waited, hoping he would say something. But Lorenzo remained silent. With a heavy sigh, Amelia turned and walked out of the gates. The cold night wind cut into her face, but she didn't look back. Lorenzo stood there for several minutes, staring into space. When he returned to his room, the sweet smell of children's perfume still lingered in the air, an invisible ghost that suffocated him. He ran his fingers along the smooth surface of the painting next to the bed, feeling a growing pressure in his chest. Did she know? No, it couldn't be. But then, why would I do that? He took a deep breath and massaged his temples. Something was wrong. The next morning, Lorenzo called the driver to the office. "Did you take Amelia somewhere yesterday?" The man frowned, confused by the question. "Yes, sir. I was ordained by Mrs. Beatrice. She handed out a list and asked us to take our time." Lorenzo frowned. "What do you mean, our time?" The driver cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "The list was long. Beatrice insisted that we didn't need to rush. But to be honest, Amelia seemed to want to come back soon. She thought she needed to be here if you needed her." Lorenzo was silent for a long moment. Each piece fit together cruelly. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to contain his frustration. "Did she say anything about decorating my room?" The driver hesitated. "Just that it was something important, but Amelia seemed excited. She really believed she was doing something good for you." Lorenzo's jaw tightened. His chin trembled slightly, as if something inside him had cracked. He was deceived, manipulated. His eyes narrowed. "Call Beatrice, now!" Beatrice entered Lorenzo's office with a calculated smile. "Did you send for me, sir?" He was standing, arms crossed, jaw set. "Sit down." She hesitated, but complied. Lorenzo remained silent for a few seconds, his eyes fixed on her as if he could see beyond her impeccable facade. "Why did you order Amelia to decorate my room?" Beatrice blinked, feigning confusion. "Like this? I thought it would be a pleasant surprise. After all, you are going to be a father." Lorenzo leaned over the table, his fists clenched. "Don't lie to me. I already know everything." Beatrice's smile faltered for a moment before recovering. "I just wanted to help you." "To help?" Lorenzo let out a bitter laugh. "You wanted to humiliate Amelia, and he succeeded." Beatrice tilted her head as if she was still trying to maintain control of the situation. "I just thought it would be good for you." "What you thought," Lorenzo interrupted, his voice as cold as steel, "was that you could manipulate her to hurt me." She opened her mouth to speak, but he raised his hand, silencing her. "I don't trust you anymore, Beatrice. You're fired." The impact of those words made her face pale. "What?" "Take your things and get out of my house. Now." Beatrice's eyes widened, wounded pride reflected in her expression. "Lorenzo, I was always by your side, and now it's not." Silence fell like a weight on the environment. Beatrice stood up slowly, anger trembling in her hands. "You're going to regret this." Lorenzo didn't respond. He just watched as she left. The air felt lighter, but there was still something missing. He took the car keys and left. The way to the train station seemed endless. Every red light, every turn, everything tested his patience. When he arrived, he jumped out of the car, without even locking it. He looked around, scanning the crowd with his eyes. Nothing. He took a deep breath. "I would wait all day if I had to." Minutes passed, then hours. And then, when he was starting to lose hope, he saw her. Amelia walked along the platform, holding the hands of two small children. Lorenzo's heart skipped a beat. Without thinking, he advanced. "Amelia!" She stopped, surprised, her eyes wide. "What are you doing here?" Lorenzo stopped in front of her, trying to catch his breath. "I came to correct my mistake." Amelia held her children's hands tighter when she heard Lorenzo's voice. His chest tightened. "Lorenzo, what are you doing here?" The train whistled in the background, ready to leave. Her heart was beating fast. Lorenzo took a deep breath, his expression determined. "I found out everything. Beatrice set you up." Amelia's eyes narrowed, but she didn't say anything. "I was an idiot," he continued, his voice full of regret. "I let my pride blind me. I accused her without thinking, without listening to you." The train opened its doors. Amelia looked at him, hesitant. "Lorenzo, let me talk." He took a step forward, his eyes fixed on hers. "You did something beautiful for me, and I turned it into something cruel. But now I know that family is not just blood. Family is choice." She blinked, confused. "What are you saying?" Lorenzo looked at the two boys beside her. "I'm saying I want to be their father." Amelia's chest tightened. "But you said—" "I know what I said, but I was wrong. I don't want just one name to carry my legacy. I want a family. I want you." The train doors began to close. "Are you coming with me or not?" Her voice was shaky. Lorenzo smiled. "I'm not the one going with you. I want you to come with me." Silence fell between them. The carriage was full of curious eyes. Lorenzo then did something unthinkable. He knelt there, in the middle of the station. "Amelia, I was a fool, but I know I can't let you go without trying. I love you, and if you let me, I want to love these boys too." She held her breath. The children looked at her, not understanding. "Mommy?" the smaller one whispered, holding her skirt. Her son's words broke her inside. Amelia bit her lip. "Would you do that, even though you know you can never have biological children?" Lorenzo took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I learned that family is love." The train whistled again. Amelia's heart beat like a drum. She looked at her children, then at Lorenzo. "Do you really want this?" "With everything I am." The tears fell. She smiled. "Yes." The surrounding crowd burst into applause. Lorenzo stood up and pulled her into a tight hug, her children laughing around them. Passengers inside the train watched them, some smiling, others emotional. The driver, seeing the scene, held the door for a moment longer before finally closing it. "And now," Amelia whispered against his chest. Lorenzo gently cupped her face. "Now, we build our family together." He looked at the boys. "What do you think about going home?" The little ones smiled and nodded. There, between arrivals and departures, a new beginning was born.